What's going on, guys? Welcome to The Reformed Reader, the channel where we review different forms of media through the lens of a Christian who is under the authority of the Scriptures. And today, we're going to do a review of Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. So I want to start with, what's this book about? And I'm going to read the synopsis. The year is 1964. On a cold spring morning before the sun, Corey Mackinson is accompanying his father on his milk delivery route. Without warning, a car appears in the road before them and plunges over an embankment into a lake some say is bottomless. Corey's father makes a desperate attempt to save the driver, but instead comes face to face with a vision that will haunt and torment him. A dead man handcuffed to the steering wheel, naked and savagely beaten, a copper wire knotted around his neck. The lake's depths claim the car and the corpse, but the murderer's work is unfinished as, from that moment, both Corey and his father begin searching for the truth. The small town of Zephyr, Alabama has been an idyllic home for Corey and his friends, but now, the murder of an unknown man who lies in the dark lake, his tortured soul crying out for justice, causes Corey's life to explode into a kaleidoscope of clues and deepening puzzles. His quest to understand the forces of good and evil at work in his hometown leads him through a maze of dangers and fascinations. The vicious Blaylock clan, who defend their nefarious backwoods trades with the barrels of their guns. A secret assembly of men united by racial hatred. A 106-year-old black woman named the Lady, who conjures snakes and hears the voices of the dead. And a reptilian thing that swims in the belly of a river. And a bicycle with a golden eye. So normally with my book reviews, I go over three things. I go over the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's talk about the good. So let's start with the characters. His characters are those legacy characters that are unforgettable. There are things about the characters, not only in this book, but the other books that I've read, that really stick with you and that you find yourself thinking about later on. I read this book, it'll be 2 years ago, and the story and the characters still stick in my mind, and I still find myself thinking about it several times over the course of a year. So the characters are second to none. Let's talk about the plot. When you read the synopsis of the book, it makes it sound like this story is so hinged on this murder, then that's what you're focused on the whole time, but it really isn't. The majority of the time, it's just exactly what the title says. It's about a boy's life. I think Corey is around 10 years old, and it's just about his day-to-day life. And then some catastrophic event here in small town Alabama kind of disrupts that. And so while in chapter 1, this does take place with his ride along with his father, throughout the rest of the book, it's really just his day-to-day life of what he's experiencing, what he's thinking about, the struggles that he has, the insecurities that he has, the difficulty with dealing with bullies. I mean, all these things. It almost seems like it's the subplot of this murder unraveling is in the background all the time. And so it's the actual murder and investigation is very rarely up front and in your face. It's really more of how Corey's character is learning to traverse these things and try to deal with life while this is going on and unfolding in the background. So the characters are excellent. The plot is so good. This book is so good. It's full disclaimer. This is probably my favorite book of all time. But this book is so good. It is the reason why we now have a dog in our home, because Robert McCammon explains in such depth the importance of a young boy having a dog as a best friend and growing up with one. And so after closing this book, I told my wife that I think we need to start looking for a dog, and thankfully we got a good one. The plot is so well done that while it sounds mundane, some of the things that you read about in the story, it really isn't. Even the mundane, what other people would consider mundane, it just keeps you reading more and more and more, gets you more and more invested. And as a fellow Alabamian, it is interesting to see this take place in our setting. And immediately while I was reading this book, I start Googling Zephyr, Alabama, and obviously it doesn't exist, but it was neat to find out that Robert McCammon only lives about an hour away from me. And so when I was reading him setting up the setting of the story, I knew this guy either has lived here or he's been here for a while, at least long enough to know about the summers here and how brutal they are. But the characters, the plot are excellent. The prose, it's not hard and it's not overly flowery, but it's descriptive in such a way that gets you can not just smell the air, but you can feel the humidity when you're reading the story. It's just perfectly executed. The world building, I mean, this is post World War II. There are hints of that and people that were in the war. There's hints of that all through, kind of sprinkled all throughout the story. The setting is in our world, so there's nothing really that he has to set up to get us sort of steeped in the world, because we can picture ourselves there today. So that's the good. Let's talk about the bad. I don't think I have anything negative to say about this book as far as the preferential stuff. With the characters, the plot, pacing, I don't have a problem with any of those things. It was so well done. I mean, this book, I have the hardcover. I mean, it is not a thick book by any means. It's maybe like 300 or 400 pages, just barely pushing 400 pages. But the text or the font is, it's a medium size, so it's not an overly long book. But all of these things, characters, plot, pacing, world building, all of that is just, I think he just really honed everything in for this one story, because I haven't read anything that's even come close to this since. Now let's talk about the ugly. What are some things that may be in this work that might hold a Christian back from picking it up? This book, even though it's written about a child, is not written for a child. That's the best way that I can explain it. There are very real adult circumstances and experiences that our characters go through and that are explained throughout this. It's just that you're viewing all of these real world and adult situations through the eyes of a 10-year-old boy. There's clear examples of racism within the book, not meaning that the author is being racist, but he's describing how a certain group of people can clearly have prejudice against another group. I mean, if that's something you don't want to be entertained by, I mean, it's in here. Murder, clearly, as the synopsis tells us. But there's other things. Women of the night that are workers in this. And again, there's nothing explicit in nature, but it's vague in that sense, but not. It's just not it's not explicit. So the reason I'm saying this is because there are several situations and scenarios that our main character is put in that are extremely uncomfortable, but they are supposed to be. So as you're reading it, you might experience that same discomfort or that same uncomfortable sensation that he's experiencing. But that is the intention of the writer, is to get you to experience what he's experiencing as a 10-year-old boy. So you've got, I mean, there's some racial things going on in this book. There's some adult themes going on in this book. There's some more gritty details. This book is it's written for adults. I would say if you're looking for a real lighthearted read, this is not it. This deals with some heavy material, deals with, how he and his family struggle with poverty and things. The end of this book has such a conclusion that I found myself crying pretty hard. Not in a good way. Like, I don't know how else to, these were not happy tears. I don't know that I've read a book that has caused me to do that other than this. This book, it met all of my expectations that I had going into it, and then really subverted some at the end and gave me not just what I wanted, but it gave me a story that I didn't know that I wanted by the end of it. And so that's why I really don't think there's anything that's ever going to come close to this. I hope so. I hope I read 10 more books that are just as good. But as of right now, this is my all-time favorite book. So should a Christian read it? It depends. Again, it just depends. One of the biggest factors would be your age. So, if you're or younger, I would say probably not. Maybe I would probably recommend this to like a 16 and up, because it just deals with some heavier topics that I think we need to be a little more mature about before we kind of delve into some of those things. Especially if you are younger and you're a big reader, you might want to get some counsel from your parents or whoever to see if they think that you should be reading something like this yet. But again, this is definitely not for children. Christians read this? It depends. If you're an adult, I say absolutely go for it. This is a fantastic book. But if you have a younger audience, or maybe you're a little averse to some gritty details and things like that, or descriptors, I would say maybe this isn't for you. But otherwise, I think this is a 10 out of 10. I think this is a perfect book. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below, and I will get to them as soon as possible. I love talking to you guys. If you have any recommendations, also leave them down in the comment section. Appreciate you guys watching, and if there's nothing else, I will see you guys next time.